I want to talk about actually the most common story that we hear
Yes,
that shows up in our DMs is...
Yeah, it's crazy. You get hundreds of DMs a day of struggling couples.
It's amazing, by the way, how transparent and vulnerable people are with I mean, maybe they feel like they know us, which I'm sure you experience too, but I'm thinking, wow, these are some deep hurts. This is their marriage, right? This is a very intimate part of their life. And we're so grateful for our community that they trust us.
No one gets married and says, you know what? I give us 10 good years, followed by another 5 where we just really become roommates. And then once our kids are gone, we get divorced. But that is a very, very common story. And we are working really, really hard to stop that story. And,
Amen.
And that, yes.
Yay.
And because we know the pain of divorce, by the way. If divorce to a child, to a teenager, to an adult is still the same.
It's trauma.
When they watch mom and dad, they're heroes of their story, separate, there's all sorts of questions that come up. And, you know, I had a recurring nightmare growing up. I never want any kid to ever experience any of that. I mean, obviously a little emotional because it's still so very close and tender to my heart. And this has been years and years and years.
Yeah.
Long time ago, but it's still there. No matter what. And so...
What you're saying, you had a recurring nightmare growing up?
Yeah. So when my parents divorced, my mom remarried, and I always had a dream. I guess it was probably watching Parent Trap. Is watching my parents get back together some point, you know? And so, you know, we were in this Volkswagen bus, and we pull up to these train tracks, and I'm in the back seat, and like this train comes our way, and I'm like trying to get out to save my parents. And then I wake up when the train hits. And that happened like over and over and over again. And I think for me, the passion to like get a hold of someone and say like, your marriage is fixable. You can realign yourself back in a healthy way is because I never want to see any kids ever have to deal with that. And I think the work that we do is so transcendent because when we help 2 adults, by the way, solve their relationship, it really impacts 3 generations because the way they push their children out into the world, divorced or together, then impacts the way they go out and find a mate and then they go parent. And so when we can help a marriage stay together, obviously, their kids come out whole, healthy, confident, and they look for other people that are whole, healthy, and confident and create better and more healthier families.
Okay, but I'm going to say this too. I think that when you help a marriage, the couple is also showing up in all the different areas of their life in a better way.
100%.
So at their job, they show up as a better employee or
Beyond
CEO.
even the children,
right?
as the first beneficiary.
Yes, they're showing up in their family unit, right? They're showing up as a friend, a neighbor. And I think that's what we've seen a lot with our couples that we coach where, you know, the husband or the wife is a CEO or, I mean, we've worked with a lot of, you know, professional athletes. And they're like, I'm in the top of my career. I have everything that I want, but because my marriage is falling apart, I feel like I have nothing. And that right there is really telling of why it's so important to work on your marriage because it can positively or negatively impact you depending upon how much you're willing to put into it.
Okay, this is going to start rant number 267
Go
for
for
me. And that is my complaint at the capital C church. The utter lack of resourcing and help that we do for marriages is really, if I were to tap into God's heart, is really heartbreaking because the whole reason for our existence behind everything is this ministry of reconciliation. I'm reconciling my creation back to myself. And then he says, and you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to capture it in this picture called marriage. That marriage is a part of my reconciliation. This is the picture of a groom wooing the bride. And as the church, capital C church, I believe that we have done so poorly in teaching couples how to withstand the rigors of marriage. Because we're called to love God and to love others as the 2 greatest commandments. And who's the first other that is in our life?
Our spouse.
Our spouse. And so it breaks my heart that we don't have more resources, that there's not like, you know, a million of us out there helping encourage relationships. And I think that there is a bit of a lie from the enemy that, again, there's a lot of pastors are struggling because they've sacrificed their marriage at the altar of ministry. So they don't want to talk about marriage because then they have to confront their own marriages. And that's why we're seeing a lot of leaders succumb to affairs or to other things, burnout. I mean, we have pastors burning out all left and right. And it's just sad to me. It's sad to me that I wish we had a greater idea behind that, because if we were to resource for our marriages, think about the sign of a church and its witness to the world. But this is a community of healthy families, of husbands that love their wives unconditionally, of kids that are respectful and kind and know what true love looks like.
Kids that have a secure home. And I think that that's really like, so we have teenagers, and this is one of my tangents. Our daughter is in the dating world, right? She's in high school and she's dabbling in it. And a couple months ago, she comes up to me and she says, Mom, I think I want to marry someone like Dad. And I said, what do you mean? And she says, well, he's still obsessed with you. We've been married almost 22 years. And she goes, he still brings you flowers. He still takes you on date nights. He still loves you.
Making
I know,
me cry.
right?
Oh, yeah. No,
So this is what
She told me that I
happened.
left
So
the room.
then, like, I was
sweet.
like, that's so sweet. Oh my gosh. And so I went to him later and I told him the story. He starts crying and I said, babe, we may have messed up as parents in a lot of ways, but like we got that one right, where
That's the foundation. I mean,
Yes.
love God, love other, right?
Yes.
Those are the foundations.
Our kids actually see us. We argue in front of our kids, but they see us make up. They see us do the weekly marriage business meeting. They see that, yes, my husband still brings me flowers and takes me on dates and compliments me. And sometimes, yes, we creep them out and we make out in front of them. I mean, we don't purposely do it, but sometimes it happens.
But they also see us trash talk each other while we're playing cornhole or rummy.
Oh, yeah. We're super competitive.
But playfully, like, we're competitive. We're like, we're going head to head. We don't let each other just win.
You're
like,
real.
We're real.
Yes. Yes.
So they see all parts of our relationship.
Yeah. And so, that I think that, if you can work on your marriage, even if you're just making a little bit of effort, a little bit's better than nothing, it's going to pour out into your children. And what a beautiful, beautiful thing to be able to, a gift to give your children.
So going back to, we talked about the common story that we get in our DMs.
I know. My fault, by the way, but this was all good because I was like, tell me about the nightmare. And then be like, So go back.
What we see couples do is they get, they say, I do, and then they start their journey. And somewhere along the way, 1% to 2% off target. And you know what? 1 week goes by, 1 month goes by, no problem.
No one even probably notices it at first. It's very subtle.
But there's a slow drift that happens. And there's this nautical law called the 1 in 60. And for every 1 degree off that you are, every 60 miles you go, you'll be 1 mile off your target. Now, you think about that. When you multiply that over weeks, over months, over years, if a couple gets off just 1 or 2 degrees, by the time that they want to hit their target of living a happily ever after, whatever that means, or launching healthy, successful children, by the time that day comes, they're going to be hundreds of miles away off their target. So these tools that we talk about are tools that are guardrails that keep couples on track for what they want to achieve in their relationship.